morning. Today I'm going to talk about, well, this is all based upon theoretical causality, reactionary physics dissection of the events that might lead to assumption or assuming. This has a lot to do with the assumption. And obviously, Louisville, very similar name, Louisville. We've got that symbiotic correlation precedence set with IBM and Rochester, and Minnesota, and New York. And so Louisville is where there's the Cathedral of the Assumption, Roman Catholic cathedral, but there's also one of the oldest Baptist seminaries and one of the Presbyterian seminaries. But then we get into that precedence, and that's motive for maintaining control, forced dependence upon the system of the pooled assets. That seems to be a key part about this, pooling assets. It's like, let's just, hey, who cares? You're worth $1 billion. We're worth like 1,000, or but we're all going to throw it together, and then we're going to roll the dice for it. But we're not going to tell you that. We're not going to tell you what you're really worth. Always going to try to hide the facts in order to be able to usurp power or to usurp control. So it gets into this communal. I honestly think we're key makers. Like I said, that's, I think, what we always are. They plug us into schemes. We're relegated to a low status, but we provide VIP keys. That's what it's all about. They want those. They want the goods. They want the VIP goods. They want access to them. And then they build up ways, schematics or schemes in order to access the goods. And the VIP goods, most notably, the high dollar ones. But the source, they're addicted to the key, theoretically speaking, the key access based upon this pooling or communalism. We're all brothers. We don't want to share our bank accounts with you, but our genes don't matter, nothing. And so it comes into these creationist systems where the shared genetic code is like raising the level way up there, and then they build upon that. So I honestly think that's one of the key motives, and that's also why it's the key motive of prolonging the agony and the agony while I dole out the ecstasy and the ecstasy. It's all, the biggest loser gets the worst, the short end, or gets the bad end of the stick, and while he's giving away the goods, the really super goods. And there's all sorts of games going on in play. But exposure and dependence are two of the key perspectives. That's why we are that's why we are not allowed in, we're locked out. That's why there's a lockout. That's the main motive, because they got to keep us dependent, because they are addicted, reliant to us being part of their schemes. Because their schemes are like fun, big old money distribution pyramid schemes. And so they're addicted to the key to accessing the point. It would be, honestly, and they're trying, and the mob is trying desperately to call it oil. It's petroleum. That's bullshit. That's what they're selling on. Just like the war profiteers sell patriotism so they can make as much money as they can, because they screwed the pooch in the beginning. The main objective of claiming energy reliance petroleum is they want access to the keys. But this has nothing to do with a gallon of gas. This has to do with the VIP goods, the access keys. Where does that, it's the precedence of every gallon of gas is pretty much equal. That's kind of like blood. When you play this communal system, everything's equal. But it's the machines that you drive that are produced, that are like the keys. And so what I'm doing is I'm turning the keys that they open up to, like some Aston Martins or Rolls Royces or Bentleys or something, Superfly jets. That's what they get a key from this magic gas. They want the magic gas, and it's all about the crooked alchemy math. Is basically what it is. It's like the alchemists. They wanted to spin straw into gold. That's basically what's going on. Is they're using creative chemistry and creative math. The value access keys they're creating are opening doors to access vast quantities of VIP goods. And that's one of the motives of that's why we are force dependent in my theoretical estimation. It's a hypothesis, but I mean, it makes sense. And I think it ties into the Mississippi River and St. Louis Cathedral. And I think those two things are seen as big energy sources, and the Gulf of Mexico oil supply, and the refining capabilities. But there's all sorts of manipulations. I mean, it's not just about producing a plastic bottle or a gallon of gas or, cosmetics or so. It's based upon a petroleum derivative that's got super magic power to it. That's what it's all about. The super magic power equation wizardry. But it's gone. The competition and the worship of competition has created just these gigantic loopholes that are creating these massive exploitations. It really is massive exploitation. And there has to be ramifications. And that's why they want us. Is because they're trying to tie into this huge bank. See, when you produce goods or cash and you're basing it on a representational system, you got to have something theoretically back in the system. So they're tying it into futures on Latin American assets, or commodities in Southern Europe, in my estimation, or futures in Africa. I think they're tying into Latin America, and I think they're trying to tie into different types of futures, sort of commodity broker trading, so they can produce a ton of cash. But then by producing the leverage of tons of cash that was produced based upon the futures, then they can go and access the assets. But then again, that's what I was saying. I'm blowing a whistle. I mean, it's obviously, so the crooked referees, that's one of my theoretical estimations why the NFL strikes, and referee strike, is because it's just crooked math going on. The legality logic of it all is so far skewed. It's not an eye for an eye. It's not even treble damages. We're talking about stanky puter. We're talking about an eye for like millions and millions and millions and millions of eyes. And it's even done. It's not in. The funny part is, it's even done in a dungeon lynch mob scenario for the most part, so they can get the most. They want to get the most out of it. And the desperation cover-up, it's a gamble, though. I mean, the gambling was on this chicanery nature of what was going on. But that's my theoretical motive for forced dependency. And that's why I'm a hog-tied in a cage, basically, and I can't even defend myself. Anybody that wants can come shove a shank or a spear into me, and then it just starts basically flowing energy. They just come in and plug in, they just keep plugging and plugging until and it's just gotten so overboard. Like I was saying, spitting sparks like a dragon kind of metaphor, but it's just way overloaded, and it's taxing the entire global economy. In my theory, that's why and the only answer is print more money. All they can do is get fatter, fatter and wider, print more money, sprawl, rather than fixing the problem, which is creative accounting, crooked math, loopholes, and piggybacking, and I think it really is all based upon this communalism. See, there's one thing about doing a communalism system, but when you start attaching the superpowers to it, and that's the exploitation, the crooked math is where you went wrong. Not to mention is you're getting into the really superpower or super value keys and access of assets, which is in my estimation, not really a wise thing. I mean, you can do it in a mediocrity setting to a degree, but if you got one person that's putting in billions and billions, and you got a bunch of other people that are worth thousands and thousands, and then you turn the billion contributor into a literal hostage slave to protect all the thousands and thousand value who have then been elevated to hundreds of thousands. You know, it's like you throw in a billion with a bunch of thousands, and then you get the median, and then you build upon that, and then you bury the source. That's what's basically going on in my theoretical estimation.